The air was thick with the scent of roasted turkey and sweet potatoes, a familiar aroma that usually brought comfort, but today it only filled me with dread. My family was gathered in the living room, laughter echoing off the walls, but the sound felt distant, like an echo in a cavern. I stood at the edge of the room, my heart racing as I watched my parents prepare to unveil the family tree. It was supposed to be a celebration, a tribute to our lineage, but I felt like a ghost in my own home, waiting for a moment that would shatter the fragile peace we had created over the years. As my father pulled the cloth away, revealing a sprawling tree with 112 names elegantly inscribed, my breath caught in my throat. The names danced across the parchment, but there was one glaring absence: mine. A wave of confusion crashed over me, followed by a sharp stab of betrayal. I tried to mask my shock with a smile, forcing laughter along with the rest of the family, but inside, a storm was brewing. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating, as the awkward chuckles faded into an uncomfortable silence. "What a beautiful way to honor our family," my mother exclaimed, her voice bright and cheerful, oblivious to the turmoil brewing within me. I smiled weakly, my fingers trembling as I clutched the edge of the table, the wood digging into my palms. I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, but I stood frozen, trapped in a web of confusion and unspoken truths. The laughter continued, but I felt like I was sinking, each chuckle pulling me deeper into the abyss of uncertainty. I glanced around the room, my eyes searching for a sign of understanding from my siblings, but they were caught up in the festivities, blissfully unaware of the chasm that had opened beneath me. My heart raced, not just from the shock of my name's absence, but from the realization that this was not just a mistake. It was a revelation, a crack in the facade of our family's unity. I felt the weight of secrets pressing down on me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would change everything. As the evening progressed, I found it increasingly difficult to engage in the conversations around me. My mind raced with questions, and a sense of urgency gnawed at my insides. How could they not include me? What did this mean for my place in the family? Each thought spiraled deeper into despair, leaving me feeling more isolated than ever. I knew I had to confront them, but the thought of facing their reactions filled me with dread. Would they deny my existence? Would they laugh it off? The anticipation of the confrontation loomed over me like a dark cloud, waiting to unleash its storm. After the chaotic celebration, I found myself retreating to the solitude of my room, the door clicking softly shut behind me. The familiar scent of lavender from my diffuser filled the air, a stark contrast to the tension that clung to me like a second skin. I sank onto the edge of my bed, staring blankly at the family photo on my nightstand, a snapshot of happier times where I felt whole and valued. My fingers brushed over the frame, tracing the smiling faces of my family, but the warmth of those memories felt distant now, tainted by the revelation of my absence. I glanced at the mirror across the room, my reflection staring back, eyes clouded with confusion and hurt. Who was this person that felt so displaced in her own family? My heart pounded as I replayed the earlier moments in my mind, laughter echoing in the living room while I stood outside, invisible and unheard. I felt a swell of anger rising within me, a fire igniting at the thought of being excluded from my family's history. Remembering my mother's distant gaze during the slideshow, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. How could she sit there, smiling at memories that didn't include me? My fingers curled into fists, the soft fabric of my bedspread crumpling beneath me as I wrestled with the urge to confront her. I wanted answers, but the fear of what I might uncover gnawed at my resolve. What if my entire existence was a mere afterthought in their lives? The weight of unspoken truths pressed heavily on my chest, suffocating me in the silence that enveloped my room. I took a deep breath, inhaling the calming scent around me, but it did little to quell the storm brewing inside. Each moment of hesitation felt like a betrayal to myself, a denial of the existence I fought for. I needed to reclaim my place, to voice the hurt I had buried beneath layers of familial loyalty. As I sat there, the shadows of my room deepening with the fading light, a flicker of resolve sparked within me. I could no longer remain silent. My identity, my very essence, hung in the balance, and I had to confront this painful reality. I reached for my journal, the pages waiting to capture my tumultuous thoughts, a silent witness to the journey I was about to embark on. In that moment, I made a decision. I would confront my parents. It was time to unearth the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The dining room was bathed in a soft, golden light, the flickering candles casting dancing shadows across the table laden with food. The roasted chicken gleamed, its savory aroma mingling with the scent of herbs and spices, but as I sat there, the warmth of the meal felt distant. I could sense the laughter bubbling around me, but it only accentuated my isolation. My fingers clenched my napkin tightly, the fabric crumpling under the pressure as I fought the rising tide of emotions threatening to spill over. The moment hung heavy before me, a delicate moment poised on the edge of a precipice. My parents, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in my heart, exchanged light banter about my brother's latest project. I glanced at them, their faces illuminated with love and pride, and felt the bitterness churn in my stomach. How was it possible that they could be so oblivious to my pain? The thought ignited a flicker of anger within me, pushing me closer to the edge of my resolve. Mom, Dad, I finally managed to get out, my voice steady despite the fluttering in my chest. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to me, an uncomfortable spotlight shining bright. I swallowed hard, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. We need to talk about the family tree. Why wasn't I included? My words hung in the air like a challenge, and I could see the flicker of shock pass over my parents' faces. Chloe, it's not what you think, my mother said, her voice laced with a mix of disbelief and defensiveness. I could see her hands trembling slightly as she reached for her glass, the ice clinking against the crystal, a sound that echoed in the tense silence. I could feel the weight of their denial pressing down on me, and the frustration bubbled to the surface. Not what I think, I shot back, my heart racing as I struggled to keep my composure. I was left out, my existence was erased. How can you say it's not what I think? The words spilled out in a rush, fueled by years of unvoiced hurt. I could see my father's jaw tighten, his eyes narrowing slightly as if bracing for impact. The tension in the room became palpable, each of us caught in the web of our own emotions. This is just a misunderstanding, Chloe. We love you, you know that, my father interjected, his voice low and measured, but it did little to quell the storm inside me. I felt tears prick at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. My resolve hardened. I would not back down this time. No, it's more than that. I need to know why I'm not a part of this family's history. The silence that followed was deafening, the air thick with unspoken words, and in that moment I realized I had crossed a line that would change everything. I could see the confusion in their eyes, but I felt a strange sense of clarity wash over me. I had finally begun to confront the shadows that had haunted our family for too long. My heart raced with fear, but beneath it all was a flicker of courage. I wouldn't back down now. As the conversation evolved into a heated argument, my mother's voice trembled with frustration and my father's face hardened with denial. I felt the rift between us widening, a gaping chasm filled with unaddressed grievances and hidden resentments. Each accusation and denial only fueled my determination. This was the moment I had both dreaded and longed for. The fallout was inevitable, but it was time for the truth to emerge, no matter how painful it might be for all of us. As I stormed out of the dining room, the clattering of silverware faded behind me, replaced by the thud of my heartbeat echoing in my ears. The kitchen's warm hues felt stifling, wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. I pressed my palms against the cool counter, seeking a moment of calm amid the chaos swirling in my mind. My throat burned with unshed tears, a mix of disappointment and determination battling within me. How had it come to this? I had wanted understanding, not this unbearable distance that now felt like an unbridgeable chasm. I could hear my mother's voice, muffled yet piercing, as she spoke to my father, the worry evident in her tone. Chloe needs to understand, she began, but I couldn't bear to hear more. Their words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken truths, as I made my way to the sanctuary of my room. The familiar surroundings felt alien, a reflection of my inner turmoil. I glanced at the family photos lining my walls, images of happier times that now felt like a cruel reminder of my exclusion. In that moment, I longed for the comfort of Emma's presence, a stark contrast to the void left by my family. I picked up my phone and texted her, fingers trembling slightly as I poured out my heart, detailing the confrontation and the weight of my parents' stubbornness. "They just don't get it," I typed, frustration spilling onto the screen. I needed her support, a lifeline in the turbulent sea of emotions that threatened to drown me. Emma's reply came swiftly, her words a balm to my frayed nerves. "You deserve to be heard, Chloe. Don't let them silence you." The strength in her message reignited the flicker of resolve within me. I paced my room, the floorboards creaking beneath my feet, each step a reminder of the path I needed to take. I had to confront my parents again, to make them see me beyond their misconceptions. This wasn't just about recognition, it was about reclaiming my identity and my place in this family. The determination settled in my chest, mingling with the lingering disappointment. What if I failed again? I couldn't afford to let fear dictate my actions. I needed to bridge this divide, not just for me, but for the sake of our family. The thought of a future filled with unresolved tension filled me with dread. I would not let it end this way. I took a deep breath, readying myself for what was to come. The next time we faced each other, I would not back down. I would demand the acknowledgement I deserved, even if it meant facing their stubbornness head-on. This was my fight, and I was prepared to win it for myself, for my identity, and for the family I longed to be a part of. The dim light of my room cast long shadows on the walls, creeping into corners where doubts lurked like specters. Seated at my desk, I opened my journal, the crisp pages inviting as I felt the weight of my emotions pressing down on me. The scent of the lavender candle flickered softly, a futile attempt to calm my racing thoughts. I took a deep breath and began to write, pouring out my heart onto the pages, each word a step toward clarity. My hand trembled slightly as I jotted down my feelings of betrayal, the anguish of exclusion, and the desperate need for acknowledgement from my parents. As I paused, I could almost hear Emma's encouraging voice echoing in my mind, reminding me of my worth. "You deserve to be heard, Chloe. Don't let fear silence you." The memory of her unwavering support propelled me forward, igniting a spark of determination within me. I needed to confront my mother, to lay bare the emotional scars that had been hidden for far too long. But with every stroke of my pen, fear intertwined with resolve, whispering doubts about how she would react. Would she dismiss my feelings again, or was there a chance that this time she might listen? I glanced at the family photos hanging on my wall, their smiles frozen in time, yet filled with layers of unspoken truths. Each image was a reminder of the love I craved, yet felt so distant from. With a sigh, I flipped back through the pages of my journal, reading the words I had spilled onto the paper like a lifeline. I could feel the frustration bubbling within me like a simmering pot about to overflow. I wanted to reclaim my place in this family, to confront the secrets that had kept me in the shadows for too long. This was about more than just acknowledgement. It was about my identity, my narrative, and the love I yearned to receive. The quiet of my room contrasted sharply with the storm raging inside me. I knew I had to prepare myself for the confrontation that awaited me, steeling my resolve like armor. I closed my journal, feeling a sense of purpose swell within me as I envisioned the upcoming family dinner. I would not shy away. I would stand tall and demand to be seen. It was time to break the silence, to confront the weight of my family's secrets, and finally seek the closure I had been yearning for. The path ahead was daunting, but I was ready to take that first step toward reclaiming my voice. The air hung thick with tension as I sat at the dinner table, the remnants of the meal scattered around like fragments of my shattered resolve. My parents exchanged glances, their faces a mixture of concern and defensiveness, as if they could sense the storm brewing within me. My heart raced, each beat echoing the urgency of the moment. I could feel my palms grow clammy, the cool surface of the table grounding me even as my mind spiraled with doubts and fears. "Chloe, is something bothering you?" my father asked, his tone feigning casualness, but I could see the flicker of apprehension in his eyes. I glanced at my mother, her expression unreadable, but there was a tightness in her jaw that told me she was bracing for impact. I took a deep breath, my thoughts racing back to the family tree reveal, the images of joy that had excluded me. The weight of my silence felt heavy, but I knew I had to speak. "I don't understand why I wasn't included in the family tree. It's as if I don't matter to you at all," I said, my voice quaking but resolute. The words hung in the air, a dare and a plea wrapped into one. My mother's eyes narrowed, and she opened her mouth, but no words came out. I pressed on, fueled by a surge of courage. "You can't keep pretending everything is fine. I feel like a ghost in this family, invisible and unheard. I need you to acknowledge my existence." The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the sound of my breathing, quick and uneven. My mother's expression shifted from shock to anger, and I could sense the walls closing in. "You're being dramatic, Chloe. It's not that serious," she finally replied, her tone dismissive as if my feelings were trivial. The sting of her words cut deeper than I expected, igniting a fire within me. I refused to let her brush me aside again. "I will not be reduced to a punchline in our family's story. This ends with me standing up for myself," I declared, my voice rising with each syllable, shaking off the fear that had gripped me for so long. I could see my father's brows furrow, and a flicker of pride mingled with disbelief crossed his face. As the tension escalated, I saw my mother's defenses rise, her body language shifting as she leaned back, crossing her arms tightly over her chest. It was clear she was preparing for battle, but I was ready. I wouldn't back down this time. This confrontation, however painful, was necessary to reclaim my identity within this fractured family. The path ahead was uncertain, but in that moment I felt a sense of clarity. I was finally taking control of my narrative. The aftermath of the confrontation weighed heavily on me, each moment replaying in my mind like a haunting echo. I sat alone in my room, the dim light filtering through the curtains casting a soft glow on the walls, yet it felt as if shadows had taken residence in my heart. The air was thick with the scent of lavender, but it offered little comfort. Instead, it served as a reminder of my tumultuous emotions. I could still hear my mother's sharp words slicing through the silence, her disbelief and defensiveness a bitter pill to swallow. I wrapped my arms around my knees, feeling the coolness of the wooden floor beneath me, a stark contrast to the heat of anger simmering within. It dawned on me that the confrontation had not only revealed the rift between us, but had also unearthed years of buried resentment. I gazed at the family tree that hung on my wall, its branches sprawling yet so devoid of my name. Each missing leaf felt like a dagger to my heart, a constant reminder of my exclusion. In that moment, I realized I needed to take control. I would not allow this to define me, nor would I let it sever my ties completely. I began to sketch out a plan, writing down my thoughts in a frayed notebook. I envisioned how I would approach my family again, this time armed with the truth of my feelings. I would reclaim my narrative not through vengeance, but through clarity and courage. The idea of confronting them again sent a shiver down my spine, but deep down, I knew it was a necessary step towards healing. I could picture their reactions, the mixture of surprise and possibly remorse. Would they listen this time? I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me, a small flame that urged me to stand my ground. I would use their own words against them, not as weapons, but as tools for understanding. I would remind them of my worth, of the love that was meant to permeate our family. As I penned down my thoughts, a sense of resolve washed over me. I was done being silent. This was not just about a family tree or my name missing from it. This was about claiming my place and demanding recognition. I would face them again, not with anger, but with a fierce determination to be seen. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I had to believe it was one worth taking. My family would have to see me, understand me, and finally acknowledge the impact of their actions. This time, I would not back down. The dining room was eerily quiet, the remnants of the previous argument hanging in the air like a thick fog. I could feel the weight of my parents' gazes upon me, their expressions a mixture of confusion and regret. The family tree hung behind them, a stark reminder of the names it displayed, with mine glaringly absent. I took a deep breath, the cool air filling my lungs as I steeled myself for the confrontation I had long feared but desperately needed. "I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice trembling slightly but gaining strength with each word. "For years, I've felt like a stranger in my own family. You both pretend that everything is fine, but the truth is I've been hurting. Why wasn't I included? Why does it feel like I don't belong?" The words spilled out, each syllable a release of pent-up frustration and sadness. My father shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting to my mother, who looked as though she had been struck. "Chloe, we never meant to," my mother began, but I cut her off, the emotions bubbling over. "No, you need to listen. I've spent too long feeling invisible. I want to know why you've kept me out of this family narrative. It's not just about a name, it's about my identity, my worth. I will not be reduced to a punchline in a family story that doesn't even acknowledge my existence." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock on the wall, each tick a reminder of the time my family had spent avoiding the truth. My heart raced, the tension palpable as I searched their faces for understanding. My mother's expression softened, the hardness in her eyes giving way to something else, regret perhaps, or a longing for reconciliation. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't realize how much my actions hurt you. I thought I was protecting you, shielding you from the pain of our history. But that should never have come at the cost of your place in our family. Can you forgive me?" My chest tightened at her words, the possibility of healing flickering like a fragile flame between us. I hesitated, the anger still simmering beneath the surface, yet I felt the walls I had built start to crumble. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet, but I want to try. I need to understand why this happened, and I need you both to see me, truly see me. I want to rebuild what we've lost, even if it takes time." The aftermath of our confrontation hung in the air like a thick fog, the atmosphere in the living room heavy with unspoken words and lingering emotions. I sat on the edge of the couch, my body tense, every nerve ending alive with the weight of what had just transpired. The sunlight filtered through the window, casting a warm glow that felt almost ironic against the chill of the silence enveloping us. My family exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of shock and realization, the tension palpable as we all processed the revelations that had just surfaced. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock on the wall, each second stretching out like an eternity. My fingers fidgeted with the hem of my shirt, a physical manifestation of the anxiety swirling within me. It was as if we were all caught in a standstill, waiting for someone to break the silence that had settled like a thick blanket. I felt a wave of vulnerability crash over me, the raw honesty of my words still echoing in my mind. Would they truly understand the depth of my pain? Would they acknowledge the wounds that had long gone unaddressed? Finally, my mother broke the silence, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Mia, I had no idea you felt this way. I thought you were okay with how things were. I never wanted you to feel excluded." The sincerity in her tone pierced through the fog of uncertainty, igniting a flicker of hope within me. Maybe this was the turning point we so desperately needed. My siblings nodded in agreement, their eyes reflecting a mix of remorse and empathy, and I felt my heart begin to thaw slightly. "I want us to work on this together," I said, my voice steadier now, fueled by a newfound resolve. "We need to communicate openly, to address the things we've kept hidden for too long. I don't want to feel like a ghost in my own family anymore." The words spilled out, each one carrying the weight of years of longing for connection and recognition. My mother reached out, her hand trembling as she placed it on mine, a gesture that felt like a bridge being built between us. As we began to discuss our feelings openly, the walls that had divided us for so long started to crumble. My siblings shared their perspectives, revealing their own struggles with feeling like they had to compete for attention and love. I listened, my heart swelling with a mix of empathy and relief. We were all navigating this complex web of family dynamics together, and for the first time, it felt like we were on the same team. In that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about me, it was about us as a family. We were all learning to acknowledge each other's pain, to validate each other's experiences. The conversation unfolded like a tapestry, weaving our individual stories into a collective narrative of healing and understanding. I could feel the tension lifting, replaced by a sense of camaraderie and hope. Yes, there would be challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was truly a part of something bigger than myself. As the evening wore on, laughter began to punctuate our conversations, the echoes of joy mixing with the remnants of our earlier pain. I felt lighter somehow, as if the act of speaking my truth had lifted a weight off my shoulders. We were still a work in progress, but I was hopeful that we could navigate the complexities of our relationships together. The journey ahead would not be easy, but I was ready to embrace it, hand in hand with my family, determined to forge a new path toward healing and connection. This was just the beginning, and I was ready to reclaim my place in our family's story, one honest conversation at a time. As I sat in my room, the soft light of the setting sun spilled through the window, casting a golden hue across the walls. The family photo we had taken that evening hung on the wall, a snapshot of our renewed connection. I could still feel the warmth of my siblings' arms around me, their laughter echoing in my mind, a sweet reminder that we had begun to mend the fractures that had long divided us. Each smile in that photo told a story, a testament to the journey we had embarked on together, one filled with hope and vulnerability. I thought of the family tree that had once excluded me, now transformed in my mind. My name, once absent, was now forever